as Jonathan said, I've been doing global quite a while, and built and sold 2 agencies, and this past summer went into semi-retired mode. And while I was there, sort of saw the data side of this. I actually got called into a meeting with a big financial services company and said, is there any way we can leverage this social media data to find little needles in the haystack? And looking at it and said, if we combine this with the search data, we can get some pretty interesting insights. So that's not this talk, but this is how I got brought out of retirement. Simultaneously, something's been happening this year where global search, and I did one of those predictions for the year and wrote that this is finally the year of global search. In 1993-94, I wrote a business school thesis on using the internet to reach overseas markets. And very similar to Fred Smith, sort of was poo-pooed. You know, they said, this ain't going to happen. The web is going to be a fad, and this internet thing isn't going to work. And I said, okay. So built basically 3 companies around it, and I think I made a lot more money than those professors that didn't like that paper. So I think we're being validated now just by a number of things. And so I'm going to break this up into a couple sections, because as diverse of an audience as we have, as big of a topic, I just don't want to stand up here and yap for an hour. So what I want to do is sort of get a sense of why you guys are here. You know, what are you hoping to learn about international? I'll go through some parts of the deck, and then you know, I want to have as much time for questions. It's a big topic. A few of you have already told me what you're interested to hear about. So anybody want to start? What do you want to hear? And what do you want to learn about global search?
How do you target the different nationalities?
Okay. How do you target? I've got a slide for that. Anybody else?
Some talk about language on both the ads on an AdWord campaign,
okay,
and or landing pages, and or go into the effort of converting your entire site to, say, Swedish to sell to someone in Sweden.
Okay, we have a section on that. Oh, we're getting questions now.
Do you have to do anything different to for your search engine optimization for European searches like Google or whatnot, or if you're optimized for the American Union, does that work for you?
Okay. We'll talk about that.
A similar question.
Same
What are
question.
the basic rules of search engine optimization, the 25 or 30 roughly rules, tactics that you would apply to a web page? How much do they vary in non-Google international search engines?
Okay.
Do they pretty much use the same technology? So could you start just by translating more or less what you had,
sure,
at least to cover 80% of the rules in, say, Beidou or something like that?
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that. Anybody else?
What the impact is of having mixed languages on a site?
It's death.
Thank
So
you.
that's one we'll check off the list right. Regions. So Asia, nodding, sort of that's the equivalent of raising your hand. Europe, Latin America, the whole world. Okay, how many people have multilingual sites now? How many of you use Google Translate to create those sites? Just one? Okay, that's good. We'll talk about why that's good and why that's bad later. So the international opportunity, just really quick, 85% of small and medium business in the US and Europe have indicated search engines are the best mode of market expansion. Anybody here from export.gov? No? I thought they were going to try to come. Actually, it's gotten the attention of the US government to where they're going to do a series of events to help small businesses figure out how to create websites to sell abroad. There's a big one in June 6th and 7th or 9th and 10th in Boston. There's actually here in Middletown an office, and those guys are starting to gear up to help you. So I want to put a plug out for them because they're waking up to this. They just did an event in Atlanta. They're starting to do them around the US, but this is a big deal. It's a great way for American companies to go abroad. 65% of the Fortune 100 generate more than 50% of their revenue outside the US. We're seeing more and more of this. Big companies, it's 60–70% in many cases, are actually generating this in emerging markets. 70% of all Google queries are from outside of the US and from a language other than English. So, you know, the question about can we find out what markets to target? Absolutely, and I'll show you a couple ways that we can do that. The opportunity is huge. And many of you are probably getting traffic from outside the US already. Just got to figure out a better way to tap it. Search is the least expensive mode of entry of any form of global expansion. So one of my other projects in business school was to build actually a product to do as a global mode of entry model where it was 865 factors a company should weight to determine whether or not they should go abroad. So my education around international business. So this is the way I think. Everything from the predominant religion to language to currency to all that are things we got to think about. Unfortunately, the web, I had that sort of, interesting title, you're one click away from anywhere in the world. Unfortunately, that's the reality. The problem is we've got to deal with all these other economic and logistical and linguistic issues, and so we'll talk about those. Essentially, targeting users at the time of interest in their language. People will do queries from anywhere in the world, and that is the scary thing. I was in China, I was on a government tour, going to all these businesses, trying to bring the internet to many businesses areas there. And the bus I was on broke down. We just happened to have a US senator on board, so they sent out cars and picked us up. The president of the bus company said, I've been trying for 6 months to get some used buses to replace these. 6 months they've been trying. And this was in 1998. And so we went back, we were having a party at the hotel that night, brought him back to the hotel, got online. We didn't have internet in the rooms then. And within about 2 minutes found 2 companies, one in Italy, one in California, that had the exact bus he was looking for that had experience exporting to China. So we were able to do in about 10 minutes what he couldn't do in 6 months with a typical import-export company. So definitely a lot of things we want to think about. Search breaks down geographical areas. There's nothing worse at big companies that, they're like people getting to the wrong page. Customer service is like, I can only get to your US page. Why can't I get to the German page or the UK page? And so this is a big problem. Content owners compete for words. We have businesses like a big company like Siemens or some of the other large companies, IBM, that compete across countries for words. They'll run a national campaign and have duplicates. Some of the advanced creative techniques in many countries, one of the questions was like Baidu, what are some of the tricks for Baidu? Baidu only indexes the first 150 characters. Why? Because they have some of the worst internet connectivity in the world. So they can't be crawling these big monster sites. They basically come in, grab the context. So if you're trying to optimize for Baidu, definitely, title tags, headings, first paragraph is extremely important. So not everybody has the bandwidth. The irony is there's 3 or 4 countries that have better bandwidth than we do. There's countries that have better bandwidth on their mobile phone than we do. That's the other thing in Japan. How many people think there's more searching and more internet usage in Japan on a mobile phone than there is on a PC? It's true. More usage on a mobile phone. There's more purchases on a mobile phone in Japan than there is online because it's so easy to do there. So it's changing the dynamic of things. So what are the opportunities? Well, one is, if we look at sort of the distribution, we're seeing that especially Asia is really trumping the rest of the world in terms of internet usage. So China has just become number 2. Number 1 in terms of internet usage. They're sort of down at the bottom for e-commerce, mainly because they don't do business that way. And so a couple of these stats you sort of have to look at. And what we're finding is this is a big shift. There's new markets that people are just now being introduced to some of these products. And if you can be there and get exposed, it's huge. So look at some of these data. There's other ones out there. Just look at that and look at your log files. And we'll talk about how to identify some other data in a moment. But I think it's very interesting to some people to see that 41% of the internet users are actually in Asia. It's not in Europe where we typically go. Most companies go United States, we go to UK, maybe we go to Australia. Then we sort of take a little foray into Germany. Then we sort of back out that way. We rarely would go jump feet first into Asia. But it is the area where there's the most growth. Anybody want to guess what the number 2 e-commerce market in the world is?